What is up, you heathens and demons, you sinners and saints, you blasphemous, beautiful bastards? Welcome back to part two of a part two to a conversation. I reviewed part one earlier. We're going to look at Smokey Saint, and this is going to be the part of the conversation that delves into climate change, climate science, because I make a comment about AOC, and oh shit, Smokey got triggered. But before we get into all of that, I have two guests here that are going to actually come with real information and real data. So Smokey, if you're in the chat, that girl, Momma Atheist, is here, and BrainBug is here, and we're going to talk climate science, and we're going to watch a little bit of your bullshit. But what's up, Momma Atheist? We'll let you go first. Show your channel. You've been doing a lot of good stuff on your channel, so tell everybody about your channel. Her links are in the description.
I'm Amanda, Momma Atheist. I have degrees in astrophysics and climate science. I am currently a climate scientist. And that's about it. Friends with all you assholes. So.
Yeah, and you was telling me about Smokey Saint was calling you that girl yesterday, and I had a little bit of fun with that this morning, referring to him. What did I do? Referring to him as that boy or icky boy. We can play at that game, Smokey. But I'm not really surprised that he's kind of a misogynist douche on top of everything else. But BrainBug is also here. BrainBug, you like bugs, but you're just a smart dude, and you've actually come with some citation and some studies and have a lot of information to offer.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Brian, and my channel is BrainBug. I think most people out there in the audience know that, but I was really happy that you and Smokey gave us the opportunity to come here and talk about this, because climate change, I love bugs, and climate change is really has a big impact on insect life and animal life in general. And I'm glad that this gives us an opportunity to bring awareness to it. And I kind of want to hear what they have to say and see if we can address some of that and source some of that information.
Yeah, and it was funny because I was going to do this show, and I was going to do like the whole conversation. It was going to be like a really long live stream, and I was really the title was focused on Matt Powell and climate change, because the conversation focused on Matt Powell, and then it delves into climate change with a little bit of back and forth about Native American culture in there and history. But we never got to that because Smokey showed up and did his thing, and I was like, come on in. So I was like, we're gonna do this, and then I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna have BrainBug and Momma Atheist on. But I was working, and I couldn't. I was hoping to get out of work early, and I ended up staying super, super late that night. So we're doing it now, and I think that this is just the best way, because he is gonna say some pretty stupid shit, and I'm gonna say some pretty stupid shit. I'm not even gonna lie about it. I'm not prepared for the conversation. When he brings it to me, I showed earlier, and I'm trying to get it to where I need it to be. We're almost there. I showed earlier where I went into a room basically after talking to Jay Spatchcock, and then we went to praise his channel, and Gavin went all crazy in the side chat, and I was basically going into Smokey's room just to be like nice and kind of troll him about not showing up for my birthday. And he brought me back into the room because he had an epiphany about why I hate him. And I don't hate the guy. I just think he's a douche. I think that there's a difference there. And he's like completely off. And then we got into Native American stuff. And then this happened. I made a comment about AOC's Green New Deal because he's a righty. He hates AOC. He often brings up AOC's Green New Deal. And I just fucked up and mentioned it. I think I'm right here. It should be right here.
I know you care about the Indian tribes, bro. I know it's part of your blood too. But this is something happening.
I care about the earth. I mean, it's not even about the tribes anymore. It's about the earth. Like if people talk shit about AOC's Green New Deal, but if you study the science, right? If you study the real science about it, we have till 2030.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do. Oh my God, yes, we do.
No, we don't.
Yes, I mean the science is clear.
No, it's not.
Do you go outside?
Yep. Yeah, I did.
All right, so I do make a very poor argumentation. Do you go outside? Again, I'm not prepared for this conversation, but he just denied that there's pretty much any science that we need to make drastic changes by the year 2030. He's going to get into it pretty quickly, and then we're just going to open this up into a climate change discussion, and we'll talk about some of his claims here. But go ahead if you have anything to go ahead and say right now. Yeah.
Can I just okay. So let's. I think that's kind of a bad message to put an expiration date on things, to say, because it's been for the last 30 years. It's been, oh, we have to stop it by. There comes a point where it's just, let's do what we can to try to slow this down, to try to control this. Instead of worrying about when the expiration date on this point is, let's look at what we can just do now.
Well, no, yeah, I totally agree. Go ahead, Momma Atheist.
About expiration date, as it is about the amount of temperature change. For a long time now, it's been 2 degrees Celsius, a global temperature rise, which is the issue. But we have amended that to say that once we reach the 1.5 degrees Celsius mark, we go beyond that. It is completely irreparable. What Brian says is a good point. One of our biggest problems has been like what Gore did when he did that. What the fuck was the name of that?
Inconvenient Truth.
What?
An Inconvenient Truth.
Inconvenient Truth. He did way back when, which was well researched, well done. But he kept saying things like, we need to do this by then, and this is going to happen. Well, it didn't. And that has fueled the fire for many climate deniers to say, hey, look, you said this, it didn't happen, so why do we bother?
That's a lot of the citation. I don't know, I'm not going to accuse Smokey of that being his citation. That's where a lot of the citation for climate change denial stems from, is that era, late 90s, early 2000s, when this understanding, we were really starting to get the data in, and all this was being compiled new, when there was new branches of science basically built around this. When Mandy, you came from astrophysics, right? When they really started focusing on this, and people really started making this a career and delving into it, we got all these great science papers and new research on it, and it was scary because it was it was projecting this uphill kick, and you can see it in the schematics and stuff. And I'm rambling now. I'm sorry. You're
not rambling at all. No, you're not.
Not at all. And you're both of you are exactly right. And that's what I said. Like, I wasn't prepared for this conversation, so like some shit just kind of comes out of my mouth. And I tried to find it at some point in this conversation, because I'm trying to remember the study where I'm getting this 2030 number from, and it's the IPCC study about the 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is what Momma Atheist just referred to. And by that year 2030, that's when we reach that mark. And that's when we start to get into these really dangerous waters of being irreversible damages to certain fragile ecosystems, right? So it's like, and I'm trying to draw all this up, and I just can't do it. And I repeat that like several times. And it's funny that you guys mentioned Al Gore, and you didn't want to put that into Smokey's mouth. Later in this conversation, we probably won't actually get there. That is a point of contention, and I literally have to be like, Al Gore, he's a politician. Like, he was a politician.
Yeah.
Listen to her, not a politician. Right below me, listen to her.
So, I mean, it was funny that you guys went there, and you don't know that was coming later on in this conversation if we actually make it to that point.
Well, he set us back. Like I said, the information for the time in terms of just raw data, that was in the movie or whatever you want to call it, documentary. It was decent. Obviously, since then we've had a lot of changes and a lot of new data and a lot of developments and stuff. But taking that and putting actual time on it, I feel like it was more of a fear tactic in order to make a change, as opposed to trying to find a middle ground and appealing to people's sensibilities that, yes, there's a problem, let's fix it, instead of saying, this is the problem, if we don't fix it by then, we're fucked. And then we weren't. I mean, we are, but I mean, isn't tangibly so that they're able to show what Gore said back then, and therefore it has only stoked the climate deniers.
Oh yeah.
So.
And to clarify, there's some of the stuff we're not getting back. Some of the damage that has been done since that time is irreversible. There's entire glaciers that are gone. We'll never have those glaciers again unless we hit another glacial maximum in like 50,000 years. Those mountains won't have ice anymore.
Sorry.
Oh no, you guys are like just dead on, and he kind of fails to kind of recognize that, like, you know, nobody's really putting a number on it, and they kind of demonize the things that AOC has in the Green New Deal as, you know, it's not going to really take that much drastic change for us to get to the levels that we want to be at by 2030. And most of it is just reforestation, right? It's planting trees, so they're sucking carbon dioxide out of the air. I mean, there's a lot more onto that, but it's not like they demonize, they want to get rid of airplanes and cars and this and that, and it's like, no, we need to make changes. And yeah, you're right. You should actually have a conversation about the real science and what's being said by the scientists. But he's going to turn it into a dumpster fire, and I'm not prepared for this at all. Like I'm not. I'm like, there's the last thing on my mind going into a Smokey Saint room is, hey, we're going to have a conversation about climate change tonight.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
So like I've kind of like been trying to just warn people, you know, like I do really badly in this conversation. Like this is not I shouldn't have had this conversation at 3:00 in the morning with Smokey Saint.
It's not fair for him to have put you there. I'm sure you held your own, but you put someone off, on a topic that they're not prepared for, that they're not, they don't know everything about or whatever. It's don't.
Well, yeah, I haven't even been part of the activism in, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. So like I've been focused on what I'm doing here on YouTube, and I haven't done any of that stuff in a while. I'm like, dude, I have all my information. All right, I can go get it, and we can have a debate on climate change, but I want to be prepared for the conversation that we're gonna have. But it's Smokey. It's what he does. He wants to try to catch me and try to prove that I'm stupid, and it's kind of funny.
When you didn't know the answer to something, you freaking reached out to a climate scientist and said, hey, come on my show and talk about this. That's the way to approach this.
Well, yeah, and especially like I figured that would trigger him a little bit. And then it just like kind of solidified it, because Momma Atheist messaged me yesterday. She's like, I don't know if you want me to come on because, I kind of told him to fuck off. And I'm like, Mama, I tell him to fuck off all the time.
Yeah.
Mama tells lots of people to fuck off.
Oh, yes, I do.
At least once a day.
He probably deserves worse language because he's such a dick to everybody.
I just could not believe him addressing me as that girl, though. That was just so patronizing and condescending, and that's what's.
It's a way to diminish you. It's just like when he calls me Ronnie. That's his way to diminish me or to get under your skin. And that's just, that's not a good person. You're just not a good person, Smokey. And it shows that you're a misogynist. God, it's terrible.
Asshole 104 has done that to me too. I think he addressed me as either honey or sweetie, and I swear to God, if he had been in front of me, I'd punch him in the fucking nuts. Anyway.
Oh my God. Yeah, I doubt most of them would have the courage if they were actually in person.
They would not.
You're in good company, though. He kept calling Shannon that, too. So, sweetie and honey or whatever.
Yeah, it is so obnoxious. Like,
and demeaning.
Friends, but if you don't know someone and you're clearly talking down to them, especially when it's a man to a woman, it's bad. Just don't do that, people.
Yeah, there's a different, like if you know the person and you're friends with them, and a lot of Southern people just naturally talk like that if they're familiar with somebody. But if you're not familiar with somebody and you are a man talking to a woman, you should be conscious of, don't be a dick.
Absolutely.
But we won't have to watch too much more of this because he gets right into his arguments, and maybe you guys will actually be able to make out these ice core samples that he talks about, because I like repeat. Like, what did he say? I can't make it out.
Okay.
Are you saying that weather and climate are related in that regard? You're saying that when you go outside and it's a little bit warmer outside, that tells you it's global warming?
It's warmer everywhere.
Have you researched the Reykjavik ice core samples?
It's not getting cooler.
Have you researched the Reykjavik ice core samples?
Yes. Well, no,
I was right.
You know that the climate.
The Reykjavik, something like
Reykjavik,
that.
as in
Reykjavik, yeah.
Iceland, right? Or Greenland? Fuck me. Yeah. No, he's talking. They're actually in. It's funny he says that because it's weird since as far as the data is concerned, it actually the ice core samples prove not only climate change exists, but that it is most likely man-made, because in the past they look at the ice core samples specifically from places like Reykjavik and the Antarctic, and they look at the samples in terms of pre-industrial revolution era. They look at in between that time and about 1950, and then between 1950 and now, and the differences in what they find in terms of CO2 absorption within those ice core samples is ridiculous. There's no explanation for the gigantic spike in the amount that is trapped within the ice core samples. So I don't know why he's claiming that it works for his side. I don't know.
Yeah, the only thing that I can really guess, because I've listened to this back a couple times and I've been kind of researching and looking into it, and it's almost like he just has like some, like the Fox News talking points against climate change, and he hasn't really put any thought into it, so he doesn't look into the actual studies that he's citing, because like I couldn't make it out, but I did look into ice core samples, and I'm like, yeah, from the ice core samples that we're pulling up, this is the science that proves that it's man-made, right? Like that it's greenhouse gas emissions that is causing this, and we're causing those greenhouse gas emissions.
And they specifically show how the different levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere affect the climate, in terms of not only what's concentrated within the ice itself, but also the rates of defrosting in the samples, depending on the area. So,
yeah, you can tell how old a glacier is too. So you can tell how long it's been sitting on top of that mountain, or top of that mountain chain, and we can tell that the climate has been cold enough. When a piece of a glacier melts off, we can go up there and actually look at it. But they can do that with the ice core samples too. But you can actually see the age of that glacier and how long it's been since that area was thawed. I mean, that's given us a picture of a massive change in the rates of these glaciers melting off and disappearing across the globe. It's unprecedented.
Yeah. Well, and the thing with the ice as well. Okay, so the Earth's climate has climate change in and of itself is not something new. This isn't a new phenomenon. It has happened, multiple times in the history of our planet. In the past, a little less than 700,000 years, the climate has changed back and forth 7 times, and it goes, we're talking interglacial periods back and forth. The last, we moved on from the last one 11,700 years ago when we moved out of the last.
So we're still on the tail end of it by.
Yeah, but I mean, from the
maximum
peak, and kind of like the same with the solar sunspots is an 11-year period each way, so it's 22 years total. But when you look at and these are things that the changing climate in the time in the past 700,000 years that we've been able to really pinpoint, all have had natural reasonings for it, whether it be changes in the solar cycle, changes in the slightest change in the axis tilt of the Earth, volcanic eruptions. There's internal variability having to do with climate itself and ocean currents. There's multiple reasons why the climate changes, naturally on the planet. However, when you take the time, Milankovitch, how do you say that?
the Milankovitch cycle. That's
Thank
that's
you. Okay.
where we move. That's why we're in like a solar maximum or solar
Yeah.
minimum right
I
now.
don't know why I can remember that. Yeah, because it's a peak of 11, 22 years. I can remember the numbers, just not the names. So you have these natural changes in the climate. However, when you take the time from the Industrial Revolution to now, and specifically between the last 75, the last 50, and the last 35 years, in the last 35 years, the climate is changing at a rate that's 10 times faster than its normal change as between the peaks and valleys of glacial times. And we still have 30,000 years or so. I think I said 30,000 years till our next peak ends. So that in and of itself is saying, well, there's something here that is changing it at a rate that we've never seen before. Why? So these core samples and whatnot prove him wrong, not the other way around.
Yeah, and it's there's an element of common sense to this as well. Like, well, for one, we have space programs now. We have satellites in space. We can actually map and chart the way the ice is melting and how much ice is gone from given year to year. We can map and chart global temperatures now. We can see patterns in global temperatures. All of these things we couldn't do before. And the common sense part of it is we had that industrial revolution where we were just pumping these greenhouse gases into this air without abandon because we didn't have science telling us that we couldn't do that. So, I mean, just the common sense just tells you, hey, we have had an impact on this planet, and to deny it is just it's foolish. Like, we can have a debate on what we should do about it, but to deny that humans have had a footprint on this planet is just foolish.
Yeah.
We'll continue. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Change in and of itself is enough to show.
I want to
Yeah.
in that period, like you're talking about the Industrial Revolution, where we just started pumping up until like the late 70s. It was it was just getting progressively worse. I don't think that started to come down until the late 70s. I'll check that, but we were also clear cutting the forest all through that same cycle, clear cutting millions and millions of acres of rainforest and hardwood forest. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Encroaching on rainforest, super farms to feed this consumer society we live in. And these are all discussions, and there's so much science for it. Like the study that I was grasping for throughout this whole conversation, that the IPCC study, it talks about all of these just little changes that we can make in our daily lives that's going to go a long way, like just reducing down meat consumption and all of that stuff, but they demonize it. You say AOC and all of a sudden they're trying to get rid of airports.
Just to clarify, and for the people in the chat, the IPCC is the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change. So, and it's something that the world's leading experts in the field and multiple areas of discipline, consensus. That's where the 97% of scientists around the world, that number comes from. Not only that, but the IPCC also states that it is a 95% chance, 95, that climate change is man-made.
Thank you.
Leading experts in the world on climate science.
Thank you, because I don't know if we'll get to it actually watching this conversation, but there is a part in this where, like, they even have me doubting, like, where did I hear the 97%? Like, I got it somewhere, and they're like, they have me even doubt. Like, I was like, maybe it was 80%,
97%, of those 97% scientists, they believe it is a 95% certainty that it is man-made.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, the science is there. So he's just 100% completely wrong about just everything he's putting down so far. And I feel vindicated because, like, I seriously let the conversation, like, I could have done a lot better. Don't know where I got the 97% thing. I still feel bad about the whole walking outside argument because that's just a stupid argument.
You weren't right. I know he made that idiotic, do you not know the difference between weather and climate? Well, yeah, there is a difference between weather and climate, which I know Knock knows there's a difference, but it's connected. So, and weather patterns and global temperatures is a huge indicator for climate change. So yes, walking outside and noticing that, hey, it's raining more, or look, there's fucking 2 tropical storms out bearing
Yeah.
down on the East Coast right now. We have the global temperature has risen over a degree Celsius in the last 150 years since the Industrial Revolution. Our global temperature is raising at the rate we're going at a tenth of a degree every decade. That is a fuck ton, and that is not good. So,
yeah, and that's essentially my point. Was, you know, like, I remember as a kid, you basically had to dig a tunnel in the snow in the wintertime to get to your fucking car. People would die in 20-foot snow drifts. Now we get maybe a foot, and the summers you melt.
You were in Michigan, right?
Yeah.
Illinois, so I hear you.
You have like the deep freeze and stuff like that, and blizzards. So there's a do you mind if I address a couple things from the chat before I move?
Oh yeah, go for it. Oh yeah, go for it.
Iron Charioteer asks what are the chances the permafrost harbors unknown viruses? How long can viruses live in the ice? Okay, so and I actually did a video about thawing permafrost. Didn't mention the viruses too much, but yes, there are bacteria and things, ancient or not ancient, but viruses and bacteria that we haven't seen in a long time, that are that have long been dead to us, that we do not have protection for anymore, any immunity for anymore, and they will, since they're frozen in the permafrost, they will live indefinitely until they are released. We don't know all of them, but unfortunately that's not the biggest issue with the thawing permafrost, because there is I can't remember the exact number, but there is just a fuck ton of organic material trapped within the permafrost, and once it starts to thaw, all that organic material breaks down, and it does so quickly, releasing more greenhouse gases and toxins into the atmosphere, only compounding the effects of climate change. So, and then there was one more from John. You just said it took millions of years for carbon to be sequestered in the earth in the form of fossil fuels released into the air in little more than a century. Yes, that's true. Sorry. Was a question. Yeah,
and there's a lot of, like, from what I've studied, there's just deposits of methane, pockets of methane, that's all through this ice, and as it melts, this methane is being released and pushed into the atmosphere as well.
And there's a whole layer of tens of millions of years called the Carboniferous, and there's a reason why it's called that, because it's got a lot of carbon in it, and we're harvesting that and pumping that into the air like crazy. We are. That's what coal is. That's what, that's burning the remains, the carbon remains of that whole period, and releasing it into the atmosphere.
In case Math Pig put a link in the chat for my permafrost video if you're interested. So
yeah, go check that out.
Video last week too that was really good. So check that one out.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's why I was like, fuck it. I'm glad that it worked out the way that it did, because now I can have 2 people on that really know this shit. This is what, Momma Atheist, this is your field. BrainBug, this is what you're passionate about. Yeah, and people need to know. Yeah. People need to know
everything. So
yeah, BrainBug is just smart about everything. I'm jelly of that brain.
Stuff I do know, yeah. There's a lot of stuff I don't know, though. I learn something new every day, and I'm wrong about 3 things before lunch. So,
yeah, well, his humor and his intellect are one of the reasons he's one of my best friends. So that's fine, it's cool. But don't show me up, bitch.
All right, yeah, we'll watch a little bit more. We really won't need to watch too much more. There is one specific part that I definitely want to get to, something that he says. So we'll continue a little bit.
they've been in change and fluctuation over the last millennia. And actually, on top of that, we actually found that this window of time where we have existed as humans is actually one of the most stable moments in climate history of all of the entire terrestrial Earth.
That's why it was 107 degrees in fucking Antarctica just a month ago.
Yeah, that's the part that just really kind of triggered me, and I'll let you guys just kind of respond to that.
I do got something to say about that. That our current condition, the state, the way we look, the way we live, the everything about us really has been driven by catastrophic changes in temperature. We've really taken our steps forward in the last 200,000 years, which have been a fluctuation between heavy glacier periods and kind of periods like this. This is pretty warm for the cycle, but we're in a ice state. The Earth is in its cycle is in this long 500,000 year period of cold. Colder temperatures compared to the Mesozoic, compared to the Miocene, these other periods where the global temperature was much higher. But we are actually the reason we evolved the way we did was, every step of the way was driven by climate change. From when we came down from the trees and started living in the plains because the rainforest, that area of Africa, were shrinking back, up to the point where we started wearing clothes and hunting in groups when the weather got cold, or when the climate got in a glacial period. Mm. Yeah. Anyway, that's so I don't think that follows through. No. To say that we're stable.
As to what you said, Knock, it was 107. In fact, this past weekend they measured 100.4 degrees Celsius in the Russian Arctic in Siberia, which was the highest they'd ever measured, and at least as far as since they've been measuring the temperatures, and it has been increasingly getting warmer and warmer. But it just so happens that this past weekend was literally the warmest on Saturday. I think it was 100.4.
Yeah, I knew it was 100 and something, so I pulled like 107 out of my ass. But I was like, I knew it was. I had just heard like we had like the hottest day on record in the Arctic, and he's sitting there saying that this is the most stable our climate. What?
It's not, considering how much the temperature has risen globally and how quickly, to say that it is stable is just it's like saying water is dry. Like I don't know how to really respond to that, because it's just completely false, and all the data is toward the opposite. So
yeah, and I think we're done watching his stupidity. But yeah, again, it's like it's Fox News talking. It's like literally the science denial that you get from Fox or the fossil fuel industry. We will go on to have this like back and forth about the fossil fuel industry, and I'm a lefty, I have my biases.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he just completely denies that the fossil industry has anything to do with the science denial that's involved when it comes to climate. And I'm like, you want to tear your hair out. It's so frustrating because like he considers himself to be so smart, but this was literally like the same argumentation that I would get from a redneck down in North Carolina that has never went to, like, dropped out in the 8th grade. Like it's talking points. That's all it is. There's no meat to any of the things that he says.
It's a lot about being confident and what you're presenting. I think that is swaying a lot of people, and there's it's a trait a lot of right-wing politicians seem to have too. You don't have to know what you're talking about. You just have to sound like you do, and you have to use terms that make the audience that don't know any better either believe that you know what you're talking about. And, yeah, and a lot of it is built on tearing down the foundation of our education, of the advancements we've made in the last 50 years. It's about bringing back that 1950s mentality, that 1950s and 60s mentality, things like dinosaurs and things like, oh, dinosaurs are lizards and things like that. I'm going to get into that topic. I'm sorry. But, that science denialism is built. The reason they can do it is because they discredit the scientists.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal. I mean, we've got a scientist sitting right here. This girl down below right here.
Well, and I think an element of it comes from like this side. It's political, and this side of the political argument understands that their base is religious, so they can feed off of that and say this science is just wrong. This is God's intention. God will fix. Like I get all of these things from all of these different people. You know, like and so they kind of it's easy for them to make people believe that the science just doesn't really even matter when it comes to climate change, and it's so wrong because we can fix it. Like it is not out of our capabilities to at least repair some of the damage, and our children doesn't have to live through the shitstorm that's coming for them eventually in the future.
I read an AIC article about a month ago that put forth, they were admitting defeat and finally saying that yes, climate change is real, but that this is how God wants it, and so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, a lot of Christians, I get approached about this because I do talk about climate change sometimes, and a lot of Christians will come to me like this is part of God's plan. Like we're heading towards end times anyway. Like I keep putting off the Chelsea Bedell video to where like they call themselves watchmen on the towers, to where they're literally watching for Jesus Christ to come back. And climate change, well, that's just another sign that Armageddon's right around the corner. We're in that season now.
Welcome it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So they'll never be on board with trying to fix things because that would be going against God's plan. You know, we would be defying God, and it's just disgusting. Like, thankfully, Smokey doesn't ever go there. Like, I'm not trying to put that in your mouth, Smokey. We're not talking about you.
In terms of, okay, so is his argument that climate change is real? It's because I'm still not sure, because he's for him to say that there's a stable, it's the most, our climate is the most stable it's ever been in the history of our planet, which is total bullshit. Or is he saying,
I can play this a little bit more. He might
go ahead.
He might talk about it a little bit more, but I really don't like. He's saying that climate change is real, but it's natural, that humans have no cause in it. There's no science that says humans have a cause in it, and that I'm just
for having, I have the hiccups.
Oh yeah, it happens. It happens. And basically, I think his argument is this: I'm just this leftist, and I believe anything that I'm told. Is basically his argument. But we'll listen to it a little bit more and see what he has to say.
Okay.
Again, dude, weather fluctuations has
no, we're not talking weather. We're talking climate.
Well, you are. When you say, "Oh, it was 107 degrees," you're talking about
weather. I'm talking climate. I'm talking it's hot where it shouldn't be. I live in Michigan. We are hot as fuck here. We haven't had when I was a kid, we dug tunnels to get to our cars.
Yeah, I made that.
We get maybe a foot at most now. And it is the weakest shit ever.
Yeah,
right. Like North Carolina sometimes gets more snow than we do. When I was growing up in North Carolina, we never got snow ever. Can
I speak some science at you?
Climate change is real, dude.
This is just anecdotes. You say
all
science.
Of the major science. You go read the papers.
I am.
We have to 2030.
Yeah, I don't think he gets into it because now we're just getting into the dumpster fire part of it.
We're gonna put some citations in the video description. Lots of citations. There's data.
Yeah.
I've got lots of it. So.
Yeah, send that to me and I'll put it all. But yeah, it's like really frustrating. It was really frustrating for me in the moment because it's 3 a.m. I'm not wanting to have a conversation, but he's saying all of this bullshit, and it's like enraging me. And I have like this really strict policy of being very strategic when I'm with Smokey and we're having these conversations, so I can't allow my emotions to kind of get out of hand. And he kind of gets to me because it's just so like everything he said was bullshit, you know.
But he's still not even really making all that sense. I mean, okay, so let's approach this as him saying that it's not man-made. Okay, And what I hear a lot, and Brian does as well, is, sorry about the hiccups, correlation is not causation. Do you have anything you want to speak to that before I do, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, the data we have regarding the climate change and how it's affecting the world around us isn't just coming from one discipline. And when it was just this set of statistics correlate with with these changes that we're experiencing, that'd be one thing. But it's independently verifying it through different fields, of climate science that Amanda works in, through ecology, which is what I'm going to be studying, and oceanic research. All across the globe, it's all compiled together. It's multiple layers of data. It's not just one set that is presented. But
I'm looking at it right now. So that IPCC special report on global warming, it was an assessment of around 6,000 peer-reviewed publications, 6,000 from all the different genres, looking at all the different information.
Let's not call it global warming. So
yeah, did I say global warming?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, sorry, that's a sin.
So I said it. Well, me and Nervardia, when we were talking about we said it like 3 times. Amanda was and you all think I'm smart. That lady is smart too, Nervardia. So we were sitting there saying it too. It's a sin.
It's a sin. And I come from that 90s era to where it just slips out, and I'm like, oh my god.
We were taught as kids, exactly. Yeah.
That's why people like our age still say it. Unfortunately, I wrote a tweet about it the other day. In fact, this is how a senator can come on the floor of Congress with a snowball and say, "Look, there's no such thing as global warming. Climate change is much more complicated than that." But in terms of it being man-made, it's about following just a complete line of overwhelming empirical evidence. You don't necessarily, in order to prove something in science, directly look and say, look, this equals this. There is a mountain of data and reasons as to why we believe that the climate change is man-made. We have, aside from just the increasing global temperatures and the melting permafrost, you have the changing ocean currents that are due to the changing ocean temperatures. You have rising ocean levels. You have glacial retreat. You have the albedo effect, which in and of itself is contributing more to climate change. And the albedo effect is what happens when solar radiation is either absorbed into the planet or bounced back into the atmosphere. When you have things like, it bounces off, land a little bit as well, and it bounces off the oceans, but more so in things like snow cover and glaciers and stuff like that. When solar radiation comes down from the sun and hits the planet, something like ice will bounce it off and it'll reflect it back into the atmosphere. But the less ice that there is, the darker the surface is, because it's just earth instead of the ice. It is absorbed, which ends up heating the land further. But the more that you heat it, the more the global temperatures rise. So that is an issue as well. I mean, nearly every aspect of climate change ends up compounding itself and creating more climate change, just like the melting permafrost, thawing permafrost. I'm an idiot. The worse it gets, the even more horrible things become. So
go ahead, BrainBug.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and we do our energy, and we dump the waste, and the waste ends up in the water table, ends up in the ocean, changes the pH balances in the water, and in both those situations. And the water table, that affects people directly. These are not things that are just far off. This is happening now. These negative impacts that we can actually see currently are happening now.
And it's the rate at which these things are occurring as well. We look at the ice sheets and how they are not only thawing, melting, however you want to see it, different with permafrost, but also retreating. The ones in Greenland, I think it's close to 300 billion tons of ice sheets in Greenland are melting per year. And this is this ice, both in glaciers and ice sheets and permafrost, have been around for thousands, tens of thousands, even millions of years in some cases. This is stuff that has been around for a long time. And yet we can see the rapid, thawing out of this ice and it continues to become more rapid each and every year, every decade, exponentially more amount of this ice melts. Unless there's it's clear that there is a contributing factor to this, and our contributing factor, and again, I said following the line of empirical evidence, is measuring the amount of CO2 you have in the atmosphere. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere was somewhere around 200 parts per million. What it is now is over 400 parts per million of CO2 particles in the atmosphere. And that's in 150 years' time. This has changed. That's way too much. And there needs to be
the big point there.
Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's the main point there too, is how fast it happened. It's not just that it happened. Yes, we know that the Earth can retain different climates and be stable and move through these cycles. It's how fast it kicked into that from a somewhat cold period, right? Because there's a period, within the about 100 year or so before the Industrial Revolution that they call the Little Ice Age, because temperatures were, in that terms of maybe a little archaic, but it just so everybody knows the layman term for it was the Little Ice Age. But it was colder, and how fast that turned around in just that little time period is I keep saying unprecedented, but it really is. It's not something that we see in any of the cycles through any of the ice cores we're looking in through dendrochronology, where we look, at the way the trees that were harvested, or that died 2,000 years ago. We can look at those and see back further. There's so many different ways that we can check what the climates and temperatures were like and the changes that they experienced.
And even the particulates within the atmosphere, both found, in things like the trees and as well as the ice core samples, and just taking that, again, to use the word correlation, it gets fought off, but you have 150 years of time where the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere has risen from I think it's like 280 parts per million up to 400. What has happened in that time? Fossil fuels. We have evolved as a society. We have, built as a society. There, when it comes to natural reasons for climate change, we have, like I said, I don't know of any huge volcanic eruptions that happened. Our Earth has not tilted strangely at all. There's no real solar variations that's something we can absolutely measure and have been able to do so in that time. There's no internal variability in the climate in and of itself. There's the only changes within things like the El Nino and the La Nina effect have been a direct cause or have been caused by climate change itself. So it's not.
Well, and both of you guys pointed out earlier how they like to point out to certain things from the early science and say scientists were wrong about that, but they never point out how scientists were actually right or things are happening faster than the original models might have shown, as you guys just pointed out, these things are happening so fast, and that's blowing away some of the original models that we see now. But the deniers never give you that part of it. They only pick out the individual parts where scientists had it wrong back in the 90s, and now we just have better information, we have better technology, we have better everything now to really to get an idea of what we're seeing.
Yeah. Science is taking all the information and making predictions and keeping the hits and disregarding the misses. So there's going to be misses. There's going to be more misses than hits, because that's the way science moves forward.
Yeah, but with science, we recognize when we're incorrect. We follow the truth as opposed to just sticking to one belief and staying steadfast to it regardless of the data.
Yeah, and there's no real doubt. Like, there's no real doubt in the scientific community. Both of you guys are in these communities. BrainBug, you do science education. You're a science communicator. Momma Atheist, you actually work in this field. There's no doubt that this climate change is the result of what we've done burning these fossil fuels.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's never even a discussion. It's which way specifically, how can we mitigate it? But I have never sat down with a coworker or a colleague or anything like that and had an argument of maybe it's not man-made. No, not once, not ever.
And for the record, neither one of you are paid by George Soros.
No. NASA, but no, George.
Yeah. Not NASA.
What are NASA shill here? But no,
for a while since I got a paycheck from them. So
was that Mark Sargent that called you that a NASA shill?
Yeah.
Don't trust anything that comes out of her mouth. She's a NASA shill.
Is he? He's a flat earther, right?
Yes.
Flat earther.
Yeah. They hate NASA. I have a NASA shirt that I used to wear when I was thinner. I don't wear it anymore, but it was just to trigger the flat earthers.
You have a chat tonight, or a live chat tonight, man. I've never seen your chat, so
yeah, it's getting better. It's coming back. I think people are starting to realize that it's a lot freer, and side chat can be side chat, and I'm not going to worry about it too much. That became a problem for a long time. As long but like. Seriously, side chat, if somebody comes in being too cray, keep hollering at me until I see it. Don't want people being too crazy.
Yeah.
All right, I want to thank both of you for coming on. This was a great conversation. And I, like Smokey, it's not just me being a lefty. It's not me talking out of my ass. You caught me kind of unprepared, so I made some stupid arguments.
You didn't, though.
Thank you for that, because I felt like I did.
For the terminology, but you knew what you were talking about, Knock.
I appreciate it. They had me feeling like I came into this fully like I just didn't feel like I left it, and they had me feeling like I was doubting the information I was putting out, and so this does make me feel better about it. Because I was gonna give this one to Smokey. Like, Smokey, maybe you got the better of me, but yeah, fuck him. He's just stupid.
No, he's wrong. Very, very wrong, and it's dangerous. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk. I'm sorry if you're wrapping up, but I just want to.
Well, no, please, please talk about it.
What? Okay, even to consider the thought that maybe it isn't real, which it is. Climate change is real and it's man-made. But even if it weren't, what is the harm of actually fighting to have a cleaner planet and safer future? Why I just don't understand the harm in that. Why they have to fight so hard against it?
Or even if you come from
so we breathe a little better. If they're wrong, everybody dies.
Yeah. Or even if you're coming at it from like that religious aspect, this is God's plan, or however you look at it from that religious aspect, how could you not come to the conclusion that God created the earth first and wants you to take care of it? Like maybe we're the tenants that he created for this living ball of whatever we're living on, this living planet that we live on. Like, I've never understood how Christians couldn't just bring their minds to that. Like, God would want you to clean this planet up.
Well, there's that old story of, there's a man with faith and he gets sick, and he's told to go to the doctors, over and over again. And he, decide, oh no, God will take care of me. God will take care of me. He ends up dying, goes to heaven. And what happened? I thought you were going to take care of me. And he said, and God says to him, yeah, I did. I tried to send you to the fucking doctor. We're the doctors here. We're trying to fix the planet. Even if obviously we don't believe in God, but taking it from a theist standpoint, believing in God doesn't negate any reason for science or any need for it.
Didn't God give you science? Give us science. If you believe in God, didn't He provide science for us to understand, learn how to fight this stuff?
Yeah.
A lot of them actually believe, and I shit you not, that science comes from the devil. It's the devil trying to take God out of society.
They furiously type that into their phones or computers because reasons.
Well, we do have someone out there in the chat saying that you can't predict the sun. So if your weather,
you can't predict the what?
Can't predict the sun.
The sun? Yes, you can, honey. Yes, you can.
Rockwell said you can't predict it, but they predict the sun every day. They predict when it's going to go up and when it's going to go down. The sun is very predictable.
Even what he or her. I'm sorry if I'm misgendering you. You say you can't. We're getting wiped out by solar flares right now. But like I mentioned earlier, you have the the sunspots that have a rotation of every, they get worse. They peak every 11 years. So yes, we can predict that stuff and we can see it and we know it's come. Like I said, I studied astrophysics as well. We can predict the sun. And somebody mentioned to me the other day, well, we don't know if the sun is going to blow up tomorrow. Well, I mean, yeah, we kind of do, but even if for some fucking reason it did, that doesn't mean we don't know what's coming. And it just, we can predict the sun. We know what's happening. We know a lot more than it. As fantastical as this universe is, there are explanations for it. Just because you don't understand something doesn't mean there isn't an explanation.
We have entire scientific laws built on this stuff to predict what these celestial bodies are going to do. We have a pretty good grasp on their movement and what's going to happen most of the way. There's still so much more to know, but that's awesome.
I always say that, like, I'm not into science, but I like looking at science, and I really enjoy like learning about it. Like the astrophysics, that's been something that I've been really looking into, trying to go against like the fine tuning arguments and stuff. And that's the great thing about science is it's not about being right. It's just about providing the information and having the correct information and speaking the truth. Yeah, you're right. And you're exactly right. When, like, even say 1,000 years from now, they look back on this time and they kind of laugh. Oh, those people, they were afraid of climate. Ha ha ha. That doesn't mean that we don't do something about the earth if we can. and we need to change our mentalities on just how we live and how we take advantage of the earth around us. And I could go on for hours about that shit. So I won't get started.
I know you've been an activist in the past. So yeah,
Brian and I will come back for that too if you want.
Maybe we'll have another conversation when it comes to that. So
what was it? We were talking. Oh, in terms of, who was I talking to about what the pursuit of science is the scientific method is about trying to disprove your hypotheses. You don't go into a hypothesis and try to prove yourself right. You, as well as your peers, do everything you can to try to prove what you believe to be right as wrong in order to sift out what is truth. So,
and that's really what makes the YEC science just so bunk, and it just bunk science, because they're going into it with a conclusion and they're trying to prove their conclusion. They're not trying to disprove it at all.
Yeah.
So I stay away from those debates because I'm not a science guy, and that should be for debates that people that understand it should really combat it. But I just listen to these guys and it's just like my skin crawls. It's like this is all that element of science denial that just leads to so many different things in our society. Climate change just being one of them, and our inability to really be able to do something. Like we did something in 2018. It wasn't much. The Paris Agreement wasn't much, but since then we've backed out of the Paris Agreement. We have Trump literally reversing environmental regulations that are safeguards for us to keep us healthy and to keep us
Over
clean and our air
100
clean.
He has either ended or reversed or changed over 100 environmental regulations since he's been in office.
Yeah, so we're going backwards, not forwards right now.
I also have a video about the climate accords, Montreal, Kyoto, and Paris as well. So
take care of your water, people. That's what I'm saying. Take your water is what's in danger right now. I agree. These peeling back, that's the main thing they're threatening. Yeah, they're threatening the air, and that's going to cause effects long term. But right now, they're passing legislation to poison your water. It's not a lot. Just they're trying to get those numbers. Oh, we want to be able to put this much more in here. We want to be able to.
Yeah, and I'll be getting into that as I delve deeper into my Protect the Sacred series, talking about the No Dapple protest, because that becomes a big issue. It was the entire issue of the No Dapple protest was protecting the water. But if you really start looking into these things and you look at land grabs and where land grabs are happening, it's around freshwater sources. The governments of the world, the rich people of the world are trying to get their hands on this fresh water so they can store it and stockpile it because it's going to become a commodity. We're not very far away from that. So like what you're saying right now, BrainBug, is 100% that's active. That's part of the actual activism when you're out there fighting these companies we've got to protect the water, and we've got to kind of combat this land grab trying to get all, because that water is everybody's. Nobody owns that. That's all of ours. And they're trying to own it.
You can protect the land and the air, but the water flows through all of it. Sorry, I'm not going to step on you.
No. When I went on Aaron Ra's channel, like fucking, I don't know, like 4 months ago or something. And that was the thing that we really talked about was the different laws that Trump has reversed. And one of the things he did recently, and he even used the coronavirus. Sorry, I didn't mean to use the C word.
Oh yeah, I forget. Yeah, YouTube doesn't like that word. I just stopped talking about it naturally.
Right, I was just like, he used it as an excuse to lessen emissions laws, because his reasoning was that people want to, the vehicles that have worse emissions are cheaper, and because of the virus, people need cheaper vehicles right now. But it was just an excuse to just fill fossil fuel industry pockets more.
Yeah, reverse Obama policy, because Obama had that policy. I used to work for the automobile industry here in Michigan, here in Battle Creek where I live, and it was a big pain in the ass to the company I worked for, trying to meet Obama requirements on mileage, on all these new things that they were trying to do to make these cars more environmentally friendly. Trump got rid of all that shit. Yeah. All of it. Like they are jumping for joy here, let me tell you.
He tried to bring back fucking coal, which was stupid, because it was all of he made it such a huge part of his platform in 2016, and it was all of 8,000 jobs total that that are within the industry in the area that he added. He is allowing for drilling in national monuments and parks. He's just paving way for those fossil, need to get rid of fucking lobbyists, but specifically fossil fuel lobbyists, because they spend the most and they do the most damage.
Well, and that does become another point of contention. And I will, Smokey, I know you're going to accuse me. I'm hiding the conversation. I didn't show all of it. I just showed your denial part. I'm going to play it all, Smokey. I'm unedited. I'll throw it up on the channel at some point. So don't get your panties in a bunch. But this was actually part of the conversation, to where I'm trying to explain to him just the amount of resources the fossil fuel industry puts into this science denial in this one aspect, and not just the fossil fuel industry, but other industries that would be affected by the loss of the fossil fuel industry as well. You're talking big pharma, you're talking a lot of different fashion, concrete, so many things would lose, because we're talking fossil fuels are almost everything. Everything that we use now is fossil fuel. So we're talking about a huge, when we talk about a drastic change, we're talking about that. And we have the resources, we have the technology, we can be a hybrid fossil fuel green energy country in a matter of no time if we just allocate the resources to do so. But this stupid debate doesn't let us do it.
Yeah, and China's got a head start on that
Yep.
too. They're way ahead of us on green energy market. Fossil fuels are finite. They're going to go away. They're going to run out eventually. You're going to need to have the technology available to harvest the resources that are still there, the solar energy, the wind energy. And they're way ahead of us.
Solar and
Yeah.
what did Trump say about wind energy? That it, I don't remember.
Windmills cause cancer.
It causes cancer. Yeah.
The thing with green energy is that it would be very easy, because they talk a lot about like, oh, well, you're going to take away all these fossil fuel jobs. It would not be hard to retrain people that work in the fossil fuel industry to work in green energy. It's not that difficult. Our biggest issue at the moment is not only political problems and the wall that we've hit there, especially having a climate denying president, but infrastructure. I mean, yes, it's going to cost some money, and we definitely need a huge infrastructure change in this country.
Which like both sides of the political aisle are now admitting that we need anyway. Like we've got to fix the infrastructure anyway. and it's going to be like $20 trillion. Nobody wants to spend it, but we're going to have to do it. We just keep putting it off.
Yeah, so instead of fixing it incrementally in terms of the fossil fuel industry sphere, we can still do it incrementally so as not to freak everybody the fuck out, but move toward greener energy, move toward hybrid energy. Let's have a discussion about nuclear, because people are afraid of it, even though it is one of the best options that we have. There's a lot of things that people are misinformed and undereducated about, that if they just had a little bit more information. And I had a stream where I brought Science Side Up Maddie on, and she's studying weather now, but she actually used to, I believe it was MIT for a nuclear engineer, and I brought her on and we were talking nuclear energy, and I specifically had one of my cousins looking at that because she was one of those people that had just been filled with so much misinformation about nuclear energy. And even after Maddie just broke the science down and even admitted to some of the faults that there definitely are, my cousin just won't, she just can't bring herself to it, that this would be the future. And nobody's saying it's the future. We're just saying, let's have a conversation about it. Right. Yeah.
The Chernobyl event was a blessing for the fossil fuel industry.
Yeah.
It really was. That it put nuclear energy in such a terrible light on the global stage that people are just so terrified of it now. And it really was the way to the future. The technology just couldn't keep up with the demand. And
they had another meltdown in the past couple of years that they tried to hide it in Russia, that they couldn't, though, because they were detecting radiation in the wind in places like France, and they knew that something had happened, but they had tried really hard to. But the issue there is that we have the science to make, we know what to do. We know what we know how to build it here. We even have even more advanced technologies when it comes to nuclear, that something like that, just 99.999% of the chance would not happen. They're just, their infrastructure isn't that great. Their science is a little bit shoddy, but we know how to do it. We know how to do it correctly.
Maddie spoke to that directly. She's like, in Russia is you're talking about a different story, a different infrastructure. You're talking about an oligarchy. So Putin has pretty much taken all the money. So all the rich oligarchs pretty much do whatever the fuck they want. So like the industry is not regulated as it should be, because the science is there. These meltdowns can be prevented if they're just doing it right, and Russia doesn't. They just don't do it right.
No. Nor do they really care all that much.
Yeah, they don't care. Yeah, they really just don't care.
Yeah, I think we her and I had that discussion as well. The amount of progress we've made even in the past decade in terms of nuclear energy, that people just have no idea about, because they hear the word nuclear and they think of something like Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island, and just Like,
or
nope,
even The Simpsons. Like how
Yeah.
long have we watched The Simpsons and seen the like the two-headed fish or whatever
Yeah.
it was, you know?
not helping, but
Yeah. All right, man. So I want to thank you guys. This has been such a great conversation. I need to have more of these climate conversations, more of these science conversations. Because I get so like wrapped up in just talking shit to these fundamentals or to Smokies and all of them. But like, I want to give you guys like a chance to really like, because I know BrainBug, you had like information you wanted to share. So like, just share any information like. And don't feel like you know, I'll end this when we end it, but share any information that you feel like would be like just informative on this issue.
Yeah, a lot of the information that I have, and maybe you all know this, I like bugs. I also like most animals and stuff. So I have a ton of research that I've just done because it's a personal passion of mine regarding how climate change affects the ecology of animal life and plant life as well. Lots of great resources in about the insect decline. Again, that's a topic I talked about with Nervardi on her channel too. I love to talk about that topic. Bring out awareness, because that's one of the side effects that you don't see a lot when it comes to climate change is the insect decline. I have studies that show in some areas that there's been a decrease of up to 75% of the overall insect population. Now that's not whittled down to diversity, but it's a solid number, and it's ridiculous to think. And we're seeing this in more of the northern climates or the northern hemisphere, more so than the southern hemisphere. And there's reasons for that are also tied to the way that climate change affects the northern hemisphere with the polar vortexes and things like that. Really hot summers and really wet winters, and it's really bad for a lot of these species trying to reproduce. And yeah, I'm gonna send Knox some links and stuff to put in the description here. If we're doing a plug though, I want to make sure everybody knows, if you like hearing us talk about science and addressing science denialism, me and Amanda are actually starting a series where we're gonna talk to different experts in the field regarding some of these claims and stuff. And next week, you want to do the announcement for next week?
No, he's your guy.
We're talking to PZ Myers. He's a biologist. He's really been in the field of addressing some of the biological science denialism that we see out there. So we're going to kind of delve into that. It's going to be a shit show probably. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. And we also have a video we're working on too about sustainable eating, and specifically in terms of the amount of meat we consume, especially in America, and different options. Because Brian is Brian, we will be talking about using insect protein. So
yes, we sure will. It's some different ideas, and there's some different farming options and stuff, but we'll delve all into that. I'm hoping we'll see that releasing. There's going to be 2 parts for the main part of the series that we're hopefully going to be doing that later in September. In addition to that, I should have another video coming out here shortly, and if Ethan's up for it, we'll be back to taking calls on the perspective too. So yeah, look for me on there.
Yeah, if you're not subbed to Brian, please do. He is amazing. So you're muted, Knock. Muted, silly.
I do that shit. Oh, I'll never get used to it. I love Brian's channel, but what I love best about you, BrainBug, is just your energy all the time, and it comes through in side chats and shit. Like you somehow, some way, are able to exude just positivity, even in a side chat where that's literally impossible. So,
I'm really excited to talk about science, like all the time. Yeah. When I get an opportunity to speak about that, it gets me all happy and ready to go.
Well, and I just love you. I love your enthusiasm. Both of you, just the idea of doing a show, because I'll go into a room with Smokey and be like, "Fuck you, you stupid climate science denier." But like you guys actually doing a show addressing the science, and kind of combating it in that manner. That is so needed, and I think it's brilliant, and it's such a good idea.
Thank you. Well, it's one of our biggest issues, points of contention, me and Brian, is just the anti-science bullshit out there. It's not only annoying, but it's fucking dangerous. And it's not, with climate science, and you've got anti-vaxxers. I mean, things like flat Earth is rather mundane, but it's still idiotic, and it still leads to other stupid things.
Yeah, it leads to other climate science. Like right now, you have a contingent of people in America that are already starting to say that the coronavirus vaccine, when it comes, is the mark of the beast.
Yeah. Yep. Like literally saying it's coming from Satan. I don't know why people have how people have become so stupid.
That tweet you did earlier with the angel guy, though, that was pretty good.
Oh my God. That was fucking nuts.
Did you see that, Knock? This guy was saying that the government was hiring angels to.
They were alien. They were fallen angels that were also aliens. So
God. It sounds like some Christians I've talked to recently.
But the Department of Defense was fighting against them. Yeah, it was just fucking nuts. It was nuts.
Twitter science.
That is
exactly.
That's like that whole lizard people living under the ground, and the government has like treaties with them to keep them secret.
Yeah, Brian and I see stuff like flat Earth, and we're like, "Whoa, that's fucking nuts!" This shit is like next level.
Yeah, next level shit.
I joined some Facebook groups. Facebook drives her crazy, but I love going on Facebook and engaging with these. The birds aren't real. The dinosaurs aren't real. There's a birds aren't real group too, but I think they're mostly.
You showed me that.
Yeah, I try to explain that to Matt Powell, because when I was coming up, that was always the Christian thing, is that dinosaurs were a fraud. That shit was just made up by scientists. And now we have the Matt Powells of the world that literally say pterodactyls were flying around during the Civil War. I'm like, we have went from that extreme to this completely crazy new fucking place.
There's no consistency. It's just other than it being stupid.
Yeah, it's just all stupid. And it comes from like exactly what you're talking about, climate science denial, this war that the Christian church itself in particular has waged against science for hundreds of years. I mean, this is nothing new. It's been going on for a really long time. Yeah.
Unfortunately, and I see it a lot with I have a son who's 16 years old, and he comes to me very often with just crazy conspiracies that his friends will believe because they read it on the internet. So they're coming, right out of the gate reading this stuff and not knowing, because there's so much information out there, not knowing what to believe.
I got approached recently by somebody that read on the internet, and I shit you not, that Barron Trump is from the past. So this is evidence that Donald Trump comes from the past. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, but they were like, no, this is real. I'm like, no, this is not real. Like, what is wrong with you?
Wow. Whoa, time travel. That's awesome. Come talk to me about time travel if you want to. I'll listen to your time travel conspiracy.
Yeah, and yet they have like no actual knowledge whatsoever of even like classical mechanics, let alone to be able to go into quantum. But they know time travel and they believe it. So.
Yeah, I mean, they probably never read even the Orwell's Time Machine,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny. Like I'm just like the level of stupidity. Like I almost wanted to ask him, like, did the gay frogs tell you that?
that's what it is. It's InfoWars level stuff.
Yeah. It's just insanity. I'm like,
that used to be in just like tabloids, like Weekly World News and stuff, and that's where that stuff stayed. Now people are just buying it. It is what's wrong kind of with this mass media consumption that we have, because a lot of the media is garbage and people just like absorb it, and it's that image of the congressman with the snowball, and they're like, that global warming it's a hoax, just like coronavirus is a hoax now. Everything's a fucking hoax now until it's not a hoax and you're dead.
He's used that word, sir. They've used that word so much it doesn't even fucking mean anything anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't. I agree. All right, so we are going to get out of here now. I want to thank Momma Atheist. I want to thank BrainBug. Great conversation. Thank you guys for coming and sharing your expertise on this subject. And Smokey, again, don't get triggered. I'll put it out, dog. I'm not hiding it. I'll put it out. I promise. Word for word, I won't change a thing. I promise. I promise. You're going to talk shit, but I promise. All right. You guys have a great night, and we'll see you soon.